Now we're going to move into our panel discussion with three entrepreneurs of rapidly growing local companies to learn how they've been able to launch and scale their businesses and find ways to innovate. Each of you, please come to the stage as I introduce you. I'm going to start with Kyle Weatherly, co-founder and CEO of Milwaukee-based short-term rental company Frontdesk, which was ranked 136 on this year's Inc. 5000 list. Roy Dietsch, co-founder and CEO of PartsBadger, a Cedarburg-based CNC machine shop, which was ranked 525 on this year's Inc. 5000 list. And Jackie Hermes, founder and CEO of Accelity, a Milwaukee-based full-service B2B marketing agency. She's also the co-founder of Women's Entrepreneurship Week. So with that, let's get started. And we're going to just start off with each of you explaining a little bit more than I did about what your company does. Jackie, we'll start with you.
All right, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Accelity is a marketing agency that works with B2B software companies. We started locally and we have now expanded nationally over the last 8 years. So we work with companies pre-revenue up to about $50 million, setting up their marketing systems and helping them grow faster.
Okay, Roy?
Yeah, I'm the founder and CEO of PartsBadger. We are an online machine shop. So we make manufactured parts for companies around the United States, and we do that through aggregated capacity domestically around the world, including our own capacity, and then we tie that with a tech front end so we can streamline the procurement of those parts for companies.
And Kyle?
Yeah, ours is definitely the simplest. We rent vacant apartments and re-rent them on Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, Expedia. We operate in about 40 cities. We have about 300 coworkers. And that's the gist of us.
Well, tell us more about how exactly you got the idea to start your business and how you got started, how you launched. Kyle, we'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, so I previously ran a company called Solaris. I guess I was the majority owner. And we sold in 2014. I stayed on for about a year and a half. And to be honest, I wasn't really an entrepreneur when I came out of grad school. It was more my experience at Solaris that over time, running a business, you just look at every frustration you have on like, how do you start a business? You know, then over time, it's, you know, what do I like about certain markets? Why do I think we were successful? Why do I think someone else was successful? So I came out of my experience with Solaris saying we were largely successful because we were, I mean, yes, we were a good company, but we were at the right place at the right time, and we were in the right market. So when I said, well, I want to do something, you know, I don't want to retire. I want to start another company. I want to continue to work. I sort of looked around and said, what are markets that are expanding that we can have an experience similar to what we saw with Solaris? And Solaris was a medical device company, but I was looking at across the economy. And we came up with a list of 4 or 5 different areas that we thought would rapidly expand over the next 10, 15 years. And I won't go bore you with like all 4 or 5 of those areas that we investigated. And at the time I met my now business partner. And me and my wife were traveling all over the world, coincidentally at the same time, just because we were taking a year off. And we were staying at Airbnb. So not only were we really interested in the home sharing space and about its expansion over the course of, you know, the next 10, 15 years and the change of consumer behavior, but we were staying in Airbnbs in Europe and South America. And our first idea actually was to have a smart locks for home sharing, because that was the biggest source of frustration was entering and exiting units. And it was through that all of a sudden we said, well, hey, can people afford this smart lock? And we started modeling how much are people making on Airbnb. And that's where numbers sort of jumped off the page, and we said, well, the opportunity really isn't in smart locks. The opportunity is actually in being the supply on these sites. So we sort of, in summary, we just looked at a market that we thought was interested and tried to learn as much as we could about it, and eventually found what we thought was a good opportunity.
Roy, how about you? Talk about how you got started, where the idea come from, and how'd you get going?
Yeah, I spent about a decade in business prior to the idea for PartsBadger, starting a business in college, And then probably because of a misinterpretation of like crossing the chasm type business philosophy of like establishing a beachhead, I was stuck in really small markets. And I felt we had a really good business. It was personally good, but it was small. The companies that I had never surpassed $1 million in revenue. And I thought there had to be a better way and we were doing something wrong. And I was looking for a much bigger idea. What could we grow much faster? And I initially knew it had to be in a big market. And recently I'd experienced trying to buy a machine part. And I sent out a quote to 12 local companies, a request for quote. It took about a week. I got responses from 3 of the 12 companies I had sent a request for quote to. 2 said their software was too old and they couldn't open the file. And then the one that quoted us, it was cheaper for us to buy a CNC machine and make the parts ourselves. So that's what we did. And it just so happened the machining market is about $60 billion a year. And my background, at least education, happened to align with the ability to create this algorithm. I had a programming experience, I had mathematics experience, and I said, I can create an algorithm so you can instantly quote parts online. It's a huge market. Let's make the swing. And that's what we did. We set a goal. We wanted to hit $10 million in revenue in 2 years. And everything we did in creating that company was set up to hit that mark. And we just wanted to get out of the day-to-day of this tiny niche market.
Where did you, your CNC machine, where did you have that set up?
In our kitchen.
That's what I thought.
We actually had, it was second floor of our office building in Mequon. Our landlord did not know about it, but we disassembled the CNC machine and then moved it upstairs. And we had to have air and air compressors, so we covered that in moving blankets so the dentist office below wouldn't hear it running. And we successfully ran that machine in our kitchen in that 1,200 square foot office.
I knew there was a good story there. Jackie, tell us about how you got your business started, where the idea came from, and how you got off the ground.
Well, how do you follow these two? That was great, right? I mean, I built a company based on my own skills, right? And I would later find out all of the challenges that come along with building a company based on your own skills. But I was running the marketing department at Zywave, a company that many of you know about, and I was talking to some local business owners and realized they didn't have the resources or the knowledge really to set up sophisticated marketing programs, and that is one of the things that you really need to grow. And there are a lot of agencies that won't touch startups because a lot of times they don't have money. They're a little bit harder to work with and help them scale on their budgets. And I just saw an opportunity to start a business there. And when I started, I really didn't know that I was gonna, build a few $1 million company. I started consulting thinking, oh, I'll have more flexibility because I have kids now, and that is definitely, it's not quite the case, but I'm really glad I did it.
Yeah, you touched on some themes I want to follow up on, but you mentioned challenges, and you mentioned a few of them, but what would you say were the biggest challenges you've encountered so far, and how did you get over them?
Well, unlike the other panelists, I didn't really start out wanting to build a company or have employees. So I think not having that vision up front, I just wanted to be a consultant, and then about 18 months in, I was like, oh, I need an employee. Maybe I need another one. And it just kind of kept going from there. So I think not having the knowledge that I needed up front, not seeking out those mentors and coaches right away. Cash flow in a bootstrapped company is a major challenge, and that was a challenge for us for the first 5 or so years. I have a laundry list. Should I keep going? There's lots of challenges.
How many employees do you have now?
18. And
you said you're a national business now, but you just have a local office, right? Or Milwaukee office?
We kind of have an office.
Okay.
We actually completely gutted and built out an office space in October of 2019, and then we all know what happened in 2020. And my team doesn't want to go back, so we are still paying for an office, but we're not in it.
Wow. Roy, how about you? What would you say are the biggest challenges you've had to confront in launching a business?
Yeah, so 2 challenges. The first was there's a big difference between understanding how to run a business and doing all of the individual tasks and actually managing people to make that happen. And I did not know how to manage people. I think the first interview I let them know I am a horrible manager. I'm just letting you know this before we hire you.
Oh boy.
I do not know how to manage people. You are going to have to figure out how to work with me. And really just evolving myself from a personal development and professional development perspective, not only how to learn how to manage and inspire and set up people, but also as companies transition from this very small idea phase to something where people wear a lot of different hats within the organization, to starting getting specialized and more bureaucratic and systemized, to where we are today. We're international. We have 60-some employees in multiple countries. And along the way, every step has been different and has had different challenges where we've had to learn quickly. So that was the first challenge for myself personally to go through. And then the second challenge was capital. We did not have any capital when we started, other than what we had in home equity. At the time, I think we started with about $50,000. And we had to grow profitably. If we did not make a profit that month, we don't exist the next month. And it was incredibly difficult to get capital from a traditional financial institution. We were under 3 years old. Nobody would lend to us. We had to go to very high interest factoring, which actually we're still on today. It's just difficult to find the funds to operate a business that's growing as quickly as ours, and managing the cash flow without any backup. That's been the second major challenge.
I'm going to circle back to the financing question in a bit, but Kyle, I did want to hear from you your stories of the biggest challenges you've faced and how you've dealt with them in launching a business.
Yeah, we lived a pretty fortunate existence our first 3 years in business, and it wasn't really until COVID that our mettle was really tested. I mean, we probably should have been out of business 3 or 4 times, and a combination of incredibly loyal and dedicated coworkers, investors that frankly were making, it's at times what seems like irrational decisions, but they believed in us and they believed in what we were doing. And frankly, my co-founder, Jesse DePinto, we needed all 3 of those to work incredibly well to survive COVID, and we still needed a ton of luck. I mean, I don't know, 2/3 of our competitors are out of business. Now, this is a great opportunity for us now. We view ourselves as sort of like the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company coming out of COVID. But like, we haven't fully survived it. If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago on Friday after Thanksgiving when I was reading about Omicron, you know, all of a sudden those doubts start creeping in, you know, oh my God, is this going to be another 6 months of challenges, you know? So we're not fully out of it. I mean, we continue to grow very rapidly, but we definitely see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we couldn't be more excited about the future.
Has the pandemic presented any unique challenges to the other two? Jackie, you mentioned the office shift. Roy, has COVID brought any unique interesting challenges for your company?
Yeah, definitely. But if any company is well positioned, I think it would be a new startup in an environment like that where you have to rapidly change and be dynamic. So we really saw it as an opportunity, and every year we try to choose a theme that we're going to focus on. I don't recall what our 2020 theme was, but I know what we changed it to, and it was Gunslingers Rule the Wild West. So we let everybody know once COVID hit in 2020 that we're going to see this as an opportunity, and we're just going to do better than every other company out there. We're going to be dynamic, we're going to be flexible, we're going to find the opportunities in this and try to use that to our advantage. Meanwhile, on the back end, financially, I'm worried. I'm very worried that we don't have the backup that we needed, but we kind of relied on, all right, we just have to do better than the competitors and the government will save us, right? I mean, the government isn't going to let half of the businesses out there fail. We just need to make sure financially we're positioned that they would go out of business before us and enough where they would step in. And, you know, a lot of emails to legislators, and you know, PPP landed, and you know, we were very fortunate. We were able to use that to help our growth as well.
Jackie, how about you, beyond the office space issue, unique challenges from COVID for your company?
Office was the least of my worries at that time. We lost 40% of our business in March of 2020, which is a big hit in a service-based company where margins are often slimmer than, you know, a product-based company. I remember, well, we licked our wounds for a few days, and then I met with my head of sales, and I was like, let's do this. You know, what do we do to keep all of these people employed, and how do we change what we're doing now so that we don't have to make any cuts? And one thing I'm really proud of that we did is that we were very transparent with our team. Like, look, we're not in a great cash position. We just lost 40% of our business. They all saw it, you know. I'm sure they knew the writing was on the wall. We were able to hang on to all of our employees and gain the business back by about August.
I want to go to the financing question. Roy touched on it, but want to hear from Jackie and Kyle about what approach you took, because I know you took very different approaches in terms of raising funds to launch and scale yourself so far. Jackie, start off with that.
Yeah, like I mentioned, we're bootstrapped, so we've actually never used our line of credit, which is dumb in hindsight. Like, probably should have done that a couple of times. But we've never taken out loans or anything like that. My philosophy has always been, if we can sell it, then we have money to spend and reinvest, and if we don't, then we better get to work selling and keeping our clients happy.
Kyle, talk about your approach.
Yeah, I mean, we've had it admittedly pretty easy. I was able to self-fund in the beginning, and then by the time that we got to scale where we wanted to move beyond Milwaukee into a second and third and fourth city, we had a pretty good story to go tell both local investors and also Midwest investors. And to be quite honest, I find that investors overvalue previous success. So the fact that I had an exit, you know, I think a lot of people assumed, like, well, this has a high probability of succeeding, when you know, maybe I learned a little bit along the way on the first one, but it's very helpful to have a previous large exit. So we've been very fortunate.
Roy, you talked about this before. I don't know if do you have anything to add about your experience with funding your business?
I'm very bad at it. I could just start there. Yeah, I think we discounted the ability to raise money early on because I didn't really know what was out there. First off, I didn't really understand angel funding. Where are these people? How would we get that? We happened to be across the street from Midwest Capital Fund. Einhorn is part of that group. So when we were having difficulty looking for banks, I actually went across the street, and I'm like, hey guys, we're on to something here. Can you help us out? You know, and not really understanding that. I mean, these investment groups, they invest in different profiles of companies. So probably on and off for about 3 years, we tried to raise capital at various points that we've gone to angel groups, we've gone to growth equity, venture capital, and really tried to understand and learn that market, and we eventually just gave up. You know, it was too time consuming. The hundreds of people that we spoke to, although I thought what I was presenting on paper was compelling, apparently it was not. And I never really found the magic, you know, what it really takes to get these people to have confidence in what I see and the vision that I see for the organization. But I will tell you, I'm very happy right now that I've never done that, because we have a very successful business. We have cash now. You know, we're profitable. Obviously, I would like to you know, change some of our financing vehicles, but you know, we made it over the hard part. We're kind of in the clear now.
I want to talk about some of the psychology of being an entrepreneur. You know, kind of a thought of, have you achieved freedom as your own boss, or have you created a new prison of your own making? Jackie, I'll start with you on this one.
We talked about that quote
Yep,
the other day.
that's
I
why
read
I-
on LinkedIn, like you become an entrepreneur to leave a prison, and sometimes you create your own prison. Have I given myself freedom? No, not quite. Will I at some point? Absolutely. And I can see it in front of me. So I'll keep going and working for it. I mean, that's one of the reasons. There are many reasons that we all start companies, but yeah, I would love to be independently financial and have the means to, do big things, travel the world. Give me 5 more years.
Roy, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think when you start, you're definitely, you have to put in the work. We pushed all of our chips into the center of the table every month for 2 years. And if we don't succeed, I'm done financially. Everything I built up to my career at that point, they're going to take everything. If this doesn't work out, nobody else carries that weight. You have to do it. Now it's a little bit different. For one, I know how to manage a little bit better than I used to, and we have a really good team. And now spreading that load out and the burden and the support and not taking the type of bets that could put you out of business is helpful. And now I have a lot more freedom than I used to have, both personally and professionally. What I do within the business, what I want to do, what I want to focus on, time with family. I can take a week-long vacation and things are going to be okay. That was not true in the first 2 years of a business. But you kind of got to find your way to get to that point.
Kyle, how about your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of both. So, like, Solaris is probably a better example because I can tell you the full cycle of the story. So, I mean, along the way, when I started running Solaris when it was a 5-person company, like, I couldn't have had more fun doing anything else. I mean, in fact, I worked for Habitat for Humanity prior to grad school and planned to go run a Habitat for Humanity. And it was only my experience, going to work for my mom's 5-person company that convinced me that I wanted to be an entrepreneur and eventually buy the company, et cetera. And the things along the way are incredible. Your ability to impact every single day, to come in and say, I want this to be different, I want this to be better, I want to launch a product. And when you're smaller, it's what you can do in a day, and then you get a little bigger, it takes a week, and a little bigger after that, it takes a month. But your ability to have impact as an entrepreneur and to change things as you see fit and as your team sees fit, and to hire people that you think share your values and ambition, and the flexibility. I could work 80 hours in a week, but then if I wanted to go work from, I don't know, Florida for a week, I guess I never did. I never really took any time off. But I could, theoretically, I could just not show up to work for 2 months. Like, it's honestly, for me, psychologically, it was super helpful to not feel like I had to show up to work. Like, I wanted to be there. So, that being said, I'll never forget the moment that when we sold the company and the money hit my bank account, and all of a sudden, all this stress fell off of me that I didn't know was there, that I'd accumulated over the last 11 years. All these thoughts about, like, do we have enough money to make payroll? Do we have enough money? Are we safe for the next 30 days? Are we safe for the next year from, some sort of economic change? Or 5 years from some competitor? So you're constantly paranoid about the competitive environment, the broader economic environment, whether, whatever frustration of the day of a coworker. And I think if you're a good leader, you're constantly concerned about your coworkers. A lot of their mortgages are tied to the success of their company. A lot of their careers are tied to that. And all of a sudden, when I sold the company, like, the moment that money hit, I remember, like, all this weight falling off of me of, like, well, you know what? If I don't see something coming, there's a $1 billion company in Germany that can backstop this company now. There is the support of this, this acquiring company that we can actually be wrong and people will still be in a good position. So along the way, I thought I wasn't building a prison. I thought it was incredibly freeing. I will say that when I sold, all of a sudden, I did realize perhaps the somewhat pleasant prison I had created.
I want to get your take on Milwaukee's startup scene, since the three of you are in the middle of it. Milwaukee has a reputation for not having a strong startup scene, that we lag behind other markets, particularly those on the coasts. What's your take on what we have here, and what could be done to help support and foster more startup activity here? Kyle, I'll start with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, from a positive perspective, I mean, the great thing is anyone that wants to be part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, because it's still developing, to put it nicely, there's lots of points of entry, and it's really easy to get to know everyone. I mean, there's, whether you want to get involved in Generator or the other organizations, if you want to know anyone that's doing anything from the startup community, if you put a year of networking, and you will know everyone in the startup community. That's also the problem, right? Is that if you were in, I mean, a hot city, Austin, right, or Nashville or Boston, right? That's not possible. Now, that's probably a good thing, actually, for the broader economy, that you can't just know everyone. So I would encourage people that want to get involved in the startup economy that, lean into it. It's really easy to access. I would say, in terms of things I'd like to see different, and everyone's got a lot of opinions here, but the biggest one for me is just more entrepreneurs. I mean, we have a lot of the things for the ecosystem. Again, maybe I have a jaded view, but there seems to be some access to capital, or access to capital that's similar to other cities. There seems to be enough support organizations. What I just don't see is enough people taking swings, enough people willing to leave their job at Northwestern Mutual, JCI, SC Johnson, wherever it may be, and willing to start their own. We need more Jackies, basically, is what I'm saying. So.
Well, Jackie, your thoughts on that then, since your name's mentioned here. How about your thoughts on the startup scene
No pressure.
in Milwaukee?
It's interesting hearing Kyle say that it's easy to get involved, because it is to a point and it isn't. And I wonder how much of your getting to know everyone quickly is related to your prior success in the community, or that you had already had somewhat of a reputation. Because I remember when I was entering it as brand new, hey, first time here, don't really know anyone, it didn't quite feel easy to me, because it was a little, I don't want to say cliquey, but it kind of is. I mean, there's a lot of different organizations doing a lot of things, and they have opinions about each other, for sure, to put it nicely. So I don't know if it's quite as easy to get involved as Kyle said it is, but it is a small community. You can get to know everyone, for sure. I mean, I have found that all of my best friends now are part of this startup community in Milwaukee. And over the last 8 years, I've gotten to meet so many incredible people that just have the dreams and vision and the willingness to work really hard for what they want for this city, which I think is cool. There are a lot of people don't like Milwaukee, but man, the people that love it really go hard for Milwaukee, which I think is cool. How can we improve? I think there's a lot of opportunities. I think breaking down those silos is one of the opportunities. I think keeping Milwaukee's money here, because I know there's money here, but it's not all being spent on Milwaukee companies, is an opportunity. And making Milwaukee, this is a very big thing, but making Milwaukee a city where people want to move to and stay. We have a retention problem, and it's going into those colleges and telling people you can do this, and then also telling them why they need to do it here.
Roy, your thoughts on the startup scene locally and how it can be improved?
Yeah, let me address this two ways. First, with the first real business that I started on my own, we got a line of credit through WIBIC, Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative. They've been great. I think organizations like that are phenomenal for the community. I tried to get into Scale Up, I think, for 3 years and was rejected. We were too small. I tried to join MMAC Roundtable. We were too small at the time. And it wasn't until, PartsBadger, we got a little bit bigger, and then now, those tools are open. We were able to get into Scale Up Milwaukee with Elmer. He's great, and that's a great program. you know, and MMAC and access to these other resources. But I really think what spurs innovation and startups and these new companies are other fast-growing companies. You know, we don't have Facebook. We don't have Google in Milwaukee. We don't have Tesla. We need high-growth companies that have innovation at the core of what they do within the region that can spur off other people that say, well, PartsBadger doesn't know what the heck we're doing, because we don't. We just do it, and we can make it happen, and other people can see that, and they can leave and start their own company. I think we've had 4 companies spin out of the 2 that we've had so far, where employees have left and started their own companies. 3 of them, I think, are still successful and going and are promising. But innovation creates innovation. You need to have these organizations, and there has to be a starting point, because unless you have companies like that, I don't think you can create the entrepreneurs and the people that feel confident to kind of take that leap and start more companies. So whatever it takes to get to that point, that's what we have to do.
Can I add to that for
Yes.
a second? I think we have to get okay with people leaving our companies to start companies, and we have to encourage them to do that too. And I don't think we do that enough. A number of people have left my business to start a business because they're like, oh, she can do it, I can do it. And I think that's cool, like, go for it. I encourage them to have side hustles. We support their side hustles. We still have tons of companies that are like, no, you cannot work on something on the side. And so the employees do it anyway, but they hide it. And I think that if we can get more supportive of those people, it would go a long way.
Let's look ahead now for yourself as entrepreneurs and for your businesses. What do you see as the exciting things on the horizon for you here in Milwaukee and for your company? Jackie, we'll start with you.
We're going to keep growing this thing. Eventually, we'll look at spinning out SaaS companies, which I'm really excited about. We know how to grow them, so we might as well build them. And I'm looking forward to continuing to grow and hire locally.
Roy.
Yeah, I think COVID changed the game, and I don't think it's getting enough attention as to how that's going to change the labor market and the ability. Our most recent hires, actually, for design engineer position, we've had difficulty with hiring locally. We have Tennessee, New Jersey, Watertown. We wouldn't hire those people normally. Now we're remote. You know, we can hire people anywhere in the United States. So I'd say get ready. The labor market has completely changed. I think businesses that are slow to understand that are going to get behind, and the ones that do are going to be able to see that as a huge opportunity for growth. And liquidity in the labor market, I think, is great. Let's move the good people from those big old companies that aren't doing anything to the new ones that are innovating and generating and creating new things. Eventually they get gobbled up, right? But then those people leave again and hopefully can go to more innovative companies. I think that's a great opportunity.
Kyle.
I mean, this is going to come to no surprise to everyone. Everyone would say the same thing. I'm so excited for COVID to be over, and I don't pretend to know when it's going to be over. I thought, like, in June we were looking fantastic, right? And then, of course, you know, we have a variant. So, you know, just to be able to change the mindset from Frontdesk, you know, how do we survive this? How do we make it the next year? How do we make it out of COVID? And rather, what do we want to be 5 years from now? And yeah, we have a 5-year plan, but to be honest, that's not what's occupying my mind space. My mind space is occupied on how do we continue to survive and grow in this COVID environment. Frankly, it's not that fun a place to be. Where you really want to be is in whatever the new normal looks like. You want to be dreaming about that environment and how the world's changed and how we can take advantage of that. And we're just not quite there yet. So I'm excited, hopefully, by the summer that we'll be in that kind of environment.
One last question very quickly. What's your favorite thing about Milwaukee that keeps you here in this community, starting with Jackie?
You started with me. It's my home. Milwaukee has problems, and I also love it here. And I'm looking forward to the day that I have the means to make an even bigger impact than what I'm working on today.
Roy.
The more I travel and the more places I see, the more I love Milwaukee. It's kind of the mama bear of everything. It's right in the middle of everything. I mean, yes, there's some problems, but not a ton of problems, right? You can compared to other areas, there's opportunity, not a crazy amount of opportunity. The weather, you get a little bit of everything, right? So that's why I love Milwaukee.
Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on 53rd and Valete. This is home. I moved away for 8 years, and I chose to come back because I wish I had a better reason than Milwaukee is home. As I've matured, I'd say that the more analytical way of looking at it is, to me, Milwaukee offers 80-90% of the benefits of a city like Chicago or New York, with only like 20% of the hassles. I've lived in LA. I've lived in other cities. And yeah, the weather's great in LA, but when you have to think about like just parking, what time you go to Target and whether you're going to have a parking spot or everything else that just goes with living in that kind of environment, I think you get the vast majority of the benefits in a city like Milwaukee without much of the hassle. So I love Milwaukee, and me and my wife went through this thought experiment. I mean, after my last company, it's like, well, do we want to live somewhere else in the world? And not only did we decide on Milwaukee, we built a house on the Lower East Side. So whether we like it or not, we're here for quite some time.
That's great. Well, we're out of time, so I want to thank Jackie, Roy, and Kyle for a great conversation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.